Welcome to Wednesday Wisdom, our weekly devotion following the F260 Bible reading plan. This week we began the book of Exodus, which is one of my favorite books of the Bible. I want us to consider Exodus chapter 3, which is just an incredible description of God when He appears to Moses in the burning bush. Most of us are familiar with this story. We know that God comes to Moses in a burning bush. It's burning, it's on fire, but it's not consumed. So Moses goes over to see what it is, and God actually speaks to him. You know, this really shows us the holiness of God. This fire represents His holiness. Moses had to take off his sandals to even enter. We also see that God, when He speaks to him, He says that He's seen the affliction of His people, that He remembers His people, He sees what's happening to them, and that He's actually going to lead them out, and that He remembers His covenant, He remembers His people. And then He says to Moses that He is going to send him, and that's what I want us to consider. Let's look at verse 10 first. It says, "Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." So Moses is going to lead the people. We know Moses, he was raised in Pharaoh's house. We've already seen all the things that have happened with him. He's raised in Pharaoh's house, but he actually kills an Egyptian soldier and flees. And he's fled for many years. And now this same Moses, God is calling, and He says, "You're going to lead the people out of bondage." He's going to deliver them. God is going to be their Savior. This is how Moses responds in verse 11. "But Moses said to God, 'Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?'" And we see this continually in Moses. How am I going to be the one who can do this? Who am I? He doesn't think a lot of himself at all, really. He's a killer. He's been rejected. He's in his 80s. He's slow to speak. Maybe his Egyptian isn't really any good anymore. He's not been speaking it for a while. Consider Egypt, this superpower, so to speak. They have all this might. And Moses is supposed to take a bunch of slaves and lead them out. Who am I to do that, he asked. You know, in many ways, he's right. I mean, he isn't really anyone special. He doesn't have an army. Doesn't have great power. Right now, he's the shepherd of another man's flock. So there's not all these amazing things happening in Moses' life. I think this is kind of a common rejection or a common reaction to the calling of God. You know, and on our own, we can't do what God calls us to do. So when He calls us to do it, we say, "Who am I? I can't do that." But you know, our calling isn't merely about our abilities. God doesn't call us because He sees just amazing things in us, but He knows that He can use us. That's kind of what He says to Moses. Look at verse 12 with me. He said, "But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain." I think that's the key part. He says, "But I will be with you." He doesn't tell Moses all of the amazing things that he's done. He doesn't look at his pedigree or his abilities. He says, "But I will be with you." And that's true. It's not about us. It's about God. It's about this holy, this revealing, this redeeming God that we see in this chapter, saying that He will be with Moses. He's the one who's going to lead them out of slavery. He's going to do it. And really, of the callings of our lives as well, if God calls you to something, He's the one who's going to do it through you. Doesn't mean we don't move our feet. Doesn't mean we shouldn't stay close to Him. Yes, there's a lot of things that we have to do, but ultimately it's not about us. It's about God. He will be with you. Then He gives this assurance to him that this is going to happen. He says, actually, this, and it's a future assurance. He says, "You're actually going to be worshiping me on this mountain." We know that does actually happen. So God is faithful to fulfill the calling that He put on Moses' life, but also the calling that He puts on our life. So we don't have to look to ourselves. We don't have to look to our abilities, but to God. If He calls you, He's going to be faithful and sustaining you and fulfilling that work in you. So look to God. I don't know what it is that God may have called you to. I don't know where you are in life. There are so many different callings that God puts on us as believers, even things that seem mundane to the world. But just know this, regardless of how you're struggling, where you are, what you think of yourself, know that God is with you. And if He's with you, He's going to bring it to completion. Well, I hope that you'll continue with us and join us next week for our Wednesday Wisdom Devotion. Also hope that you're joining us in our F260 Bible reading plan. It's not too late to start. And also hope that you are joining us in journaling about what you're reading in Hear Journals. You can pick up a copy of the Bible reading plan here on Sunday morning. You also will find a link in the description of the video right below. I hope that you have a blessed week. We'll see you Sunday. We'll also see you next week. God bless you.